The following program is a public affairs production of Penn State Television.
A few years ago, students had absolutely nothing to say about the running of the university, and nobody asked their opinion.
In Penn State, people have seized the administration building. When are we going to hear that?
We're not going to let them take away our right to speak.
So you guys seem to think this is all racial, 100% racial.
The worst thing that can happen now is for students to start fighting students.
Student activism was once good, and now it's just going too far.
And it was almost a subliminal message to do something, do something, do something.
Your reporter is public affairs producer P.J. O'Connell.
Good evening. Militant student activism is now almost commonplace on many American campuses. Some universities, Berkeley, Columbia, San Francisco State, Cornell, even Harvard, have experienced forms of activism which their presidents would very much like to forget. Penn State's experience in the past year has not reached the proportions of a Berkeley or even a Harvard. But the occurrences on this campus are of vital concern to all Pennsylvanians, if only because their taxes are used to support this university. Fall term 1968 was normal in most respects. There were flurries of activism, or at least activity, but the student activists seemed to be copying their tactics and their issues from other campuses. Students camped on the old main lawn to protest a housing shortage. They left in less than a week. A free speech movement drew a few hundred students for 3 sunny weekends. A class boycott to protest the national presidential elections was a flop. The only disruption at Penn State during fall term was an overexuberant march through downtown State College to celebrate a winning football game. It was not until winter term that student activism began to get serious attention from the student body and from the administration. They began in late January with one of those small events which triggers a long series of interrelated events leading to a climax. In this case, the climax was a student sit-in at Old Main, and the trigger was the Garfield-Thomas Water Tunnel. The Garfield-Thomas Water Tunnel is part of the Ordnance Research Laboratory, a U.S. Navy research facility located on the Penn State campus. It was named for W. Garfield Thomas, a Penn State graduate and naval officer who was killed in action in World War II. The Garfield-Thomas Water Tunnel is also an underground newspaper published by a small group of Penn State students with their own money. Volume 1, Issue 1, featured a cover photo taken from a record album. It showed Beatle John Lennon and his wife nude, without the black X, of course. The remainder of the paper contained a variety of articles about student activities at Penn State and elsewhere. It also contained a dozen or so words that probably would not have been considered suitable dinner table conversation by the editor's mother. The administration's reaction came swiftly. In less than an hour, Vice President for Student Affairs Charles L. Lewis had banned sales of the publication on campus because it contained material considered to be detrimental to the general welfare of the campus. Vice President Lewis had acted under University Senate Rule W11, which was to become an important issue in later events. Rule W11 states, in part, a student whose influence is found to be injurious to the standards of morals of the student body, or whose conduct is prejudicial to the good name of the university, may be dismissed. No formal disciplinary action was taken against any member of the paper's staff, but each was warned against any further publication. Sales of issue number 1 continued at off-campus newsstands.
I viewed the water tunnel as an ordinary trash newspaper. It wasn't of any great journalistic importance to them. It was just something that they could look at, laugh at, say, oh my, what a naughty paper, and then he would throw it away. But the fact that it was banned by one of the officials of the university caused many students to get an interest in the water tunnel itself.
The on-campus reaction could have been predicted by almost anyone familiar with a college student's views on freedom of expression. Almost every student organization was critical of Vice President Lewis's actions. The student body president received special permission to address the university senate concerning the ban. Undergraduate student government condemned the ban, noting that it did not endorse the water tunnel, but did endorse free speech.
I can recall just after it was banned, having had some discussions with Dr. Lewis about it and suggesting to him what I felt was my opinion and the opinion of a lot of students, that had this thing been left alone, it would have been nothing. The water tunnel would have died out in an issue or so. But the university sort of laid itself open to some sort of a movement, some sort of a catalyst, so to speak, because of the water tunnel, in that they followed up and made an issue out of it.
A number of major student organizations voted to sell future issues of the paper in defiance of Dr. Lewis's ban, and the publishers announced an increased number of copies for issue number 2. Monday, February 10th, the second issue of the Garfield-Thomas Water Tunnel went on sale in the Hetzel Union Building. William Fuller, manager of the building, checked the activities.
What happened was Fuller came down here and had mimeographed out these disciplinary notices. It just said the obvious. They just stated that you're selling the water tunnel in the hub, which we knew, and that you might be subject to disciplinary action if you do not stop. And they asked us to fill in our names. Like, it was just a ludicrous act, you know. It was, I guess they felt it either to scare us or somehow in some way to make us feel that we were really incriminating ourselves, you know, but it didn't, because we just burned them and ignored them. They got a few names. There was a guy walking behind Fuller trying to get the names as we were writing them in, and he had just half a page, that's all. And then afterwards I went up to the ASA office and told them that what was going on down here, that we burned them. We just wanted to tell them what we thought. That was our answer to their idea of mimeographing this out. You know, it's the height of impersonality, you know, in the university, to mimeograph out disciplinary notices and expect us to fill them in.
Sign up for the disciplinary list. Here's the list of the names. Here's the list. Here's the list. Everybody that ever sold. It's a good American name. You got a list here. Right there. Why don't you copy them down? Here's the list. Just copy them down.
If the water tunnel had been left alone, as so many people were saying, then it would have died on its own. But the fact that it was brought to the attention of the students as being below their moral standards, or being below the moral standards of the university, the students, in a sense, rebelled, because this was a standard set by a parental-type group, the administration. And anytime this is done, regardless of what end of the spectrum the students are on, they will just naturally rebel against this standard that's set for them.
The university's administration took no action against the publication or distribution of issue number 2 of the water tunnel. 5,400 copies were sold the first day. The administration took names, but no action, against individuals and groups who sold the several hundred remaining copies of issue number 1. 3 days later, on the heels of the students' successful defiance of the water tunnel ban, came the founder of the Youth International Party, the Yippies, Jerry Rubin. Rubin had been invited to speak at Penn State by Students for a Democratic Society. SDS Chairman Tom Richdale made the introductions.
What Jerry's going to say is not going to be just yippee. It's going to be relevant to this university and the situation we have on this campus. It's going to be relevant to the way the people on the water tunnel have been treated. It's going to be relevant to the way the blacks have been treated. It's going to be relevant to visitation. It's going to be relevant to the military on this campus. It's going to be relevant to your own lives. I'd like to introduce a person who's been involved for years and years in this movement. He's been in Chicago. He's been involved in Columbia. He's been involved in Washington. He's a founder, the co-founder of the Yippies, the King Yippie, Jerry Rubin. On the way here, we're turning on the radio and you hear all these battle reports. In Duke, students have seized the administration building and they have 1 hour to get out. In Madison, the National Guard has moved onto the campus and scuffling is taking place between mobs and the National Guard. In the CCNY, people have seized the administration building. It's like battle reports. I was just hoping. In Penn State, people have seized the administration building. When are we going to hear that? The National Guard is going to be brought to this campus to put down the rebellion here. I don't know, maybe tomorrow, maybe a week from now, maybe a month from now. Because the kind of plot it's in, the kind of plot that it is a human plot where we all face the same conditions and we all respond the same way. And when Berkeley goes off, thousands of young kids understand that immediately. That makes so much sense. You don't have to explain that to me. I understand that. I understand why people seize buildings at Columbia. Because I was a student, I know what it's like to be a student. And I know the kind of being a student is. So it's like TV becomes then, in a funny sort of way, and that's why they eventually gotta control the TV. Because TV becomes, in a funny sort of way, the communicating link and the revolutionary organizer. Because Berkeley happens in 1964, people take an administration building. All over the country, young kids say, hey, I dig that. I want to make a Berkeley.
Rubin began talking very much as though he were a rugged individualist and talking about how the society seemingly had clamped down on his individualism. He made a lot of good points about people judging other people superficially on the basis of their long hair. And he got quite a bit of sympathy and empathy from people who thought that Jerry Rubin is really interested in individualism and doing your thing. And they never really asked Jerry Rubin what kind of society he himself would set up.
What America tries to get us to do is work for external rewards. You know, we work for money, for a paycheck to support a family. Or we go to school to get grades, to get a degree. Everything's external. You know, and it's tied very much to Christianity, which says that, you know, you live your life and then you go to heaven when you're dead. And it's tied very much to capitalism, which is tied like to wage labor. You work for a salary. Everything is external. Everything is like, you know, working for a goal, but not enjoying your work. And one of the great differences between the society and the youth movement that's growing up is that the youth movement wants to do things in and of themselves for love. You know, dope is a help for that, right? You know, I mean, dope kind of equalizes everything. You want to enjoy what you're doing right then and there, you know, not work 8 hours. I mean, you dig, like my father worked all year around for a 2-week vacation? All year round for a 2-week vacation. Man, my whole life is a vacation. My whole life's a vacation. This country is so rich that it doesn't know what to do with its goods, that it's got to create all this advertising to get people to buy goods they don't need, and it makes goods so that they'll break after a year, so you got to buy replacements. That's how sick this country is. This country's so sick that its existence economically is based on war. It's based on the military. Its existence is based on the military. Its existence is based on consumption. You know, if sane people had control, like me, had control of the economy, if we had control of the economy, I mean, everything could be free. There's enough food to feed the world 5 times over. What's the So the economy is like, it's like ridiculous. And what we're creating is an entire new idea about what man is, what the family is, what the nation is, what work is. It's a whole new revolutionary idea. And it totally breaks down the ideas that we've inherited from the West, that we've inherited from capitalism, from Christianity. And that's the incredible revolutionary contradiction that exists in America today. I just want to repeat that I'm sort of a self-contradiction, standing up here and just rapping and everyone kind of listening to me, because I was putting down professors for doing the same thing, and here I come and do it too. So that's why but I want to say that I'm conscious of that, and I don't like it, and I think it's too bad that it took me coming here to get everyone here. You know, because now that you're all here, maybe there's an opportunity to get together and do something, at least decide not to do something. That's deciding something at least, because the place is organized in a way that you never come together like this, and you're divided, competing for grades, and you're divided into, against one another. And so it's fortunate that my coming here coincided something like that, with coincided with everybody being here. But now you got to take it from here, and I don't exist. I mean, I'm not important to what's going on right now. And I mean, I'm a contradiction if I'm saying follow what I say or do what I say. I'm saying I'm trying to speak to each one of you, and I hope I'm setting something off. If I'm setting something off, and you'll know what to do. You'll know the action to take, and you'll take that action. And I was just like a historical accident. So this historical accident says goodbye.
And the feeling at the end of it was, do your thing. And he would say, do your thing. If you feel like taking over a building, take it over. The ground under your feet is liberated territory. And it was almost a subliminal message to do something, do something, do something.
Like, he didn't impress me whatsoever, but from what happened, it seemed like it must have been some type of communication. Right?
Rubin's appearance prompted talk, lots of it, at rap-ins and sleep-ins over the weekend. The audience informally organized itself into the red armband movement, and strips of red cloth began appearing on coat and shirt sleeves. Black students in the group chose black armbands. The marathon talk sessions finally produced a list of demands to be presented to the administration on Monday, but skeptics in the group were already saying that enthusiasm was beginning to ebb. On Monday, February 17th, a list of 9 non-negotiable demands were presented at President Walker's office by a small group of students. The demands included immediate implementation of the Douglas Association's list of 13 demands made early in January, immediate withdrawal of Rule W11 from the University Senate's Rules for Student Conduct, 1/3 of the University Senate to be of students with voting powers, and demands for self-determination for rules in living areas, women students to have the same rights as men students, a university-owned bookstore, no military recruitment on campus, and abolition of academic credit for ROTC. The list of demands was signed by the Steering Committee to Reform the University. The university administration was given 1 week to reply. Later that same day, a student who had been managing editor of Issue 1 of the Garfield-Thomas Water Tunnel was arrested in a classroom by a State College Borough police officer. Warrants were issued for 3 other university students, a bookstore employee, and a high school student. They were charged by the borough with various counts of publishing, distributing, and selling obscene literature to minors. Maximum punishment for any of the charges is 2 years in jail and a $2,000 fine. When word of the arrest spread across campus, several hundred students joined the 3 others for whom warrants had been issued as they went to the borough police station to surrender.
They can't take away our right to express our ideas. This is where we draw the line. This country was founded on the idea of free speech. We are not going to let them take away our right to speak. This issue is not going to be decided by the pigs. It's not the pigs who decide whether something is obscene. People. What is more obscene than any nude photograph of John Lennon is the fact that these guys can take away our right to speak freely as we wish.
I think it radicalized a lot of students who ordinarily wouldn't have participated in nothing, you know, outside of their fraternity parties or their apartment parties, you know.
The movement itself seemed to be dying, and it really got a shot in the arm on Monday when these kids were arrested. And you could tell, in fact, that a number of the activists were actually happy to see the others arrested because it gave them a cause, and they got down there with a loudspeaker and got everybody worked up on the free speech movement. And it was very interesting to see the change between a movement which was dead Monday morning and a movement which was alive Monday afternoon after the arrests.
The students were arraigned before a justice of the peace and released on $100 bail pending a preliminary hearing later in the week. About half the group of students marched to Old Main to protest the arrests. University officials claimed they had had no part in bringing the charges or in executing the arrests. Police officers in Pennsylvania may make arrests on college campuses without the knowledge or consent of the institution's officials. When the building closed at 5 p.m., the students left. There were comments by some radicals that a golden opportunity had been missed. That night, a meeting of faculty members demanded a more complete explanation of the university's role in the arrest of a student in a classroom. The next day, university spokesmen again denied any involvement in the arrests. The university's principal official in matters of this sort, Vice President for Student Affairs Charles Lewis, was not at the meeting. A delegation of students was sent to invite him to attend. Students attending the meeting expressed considerable displeasure over administration policy in the application of certain rules, particularly Rule W11.
Our group, but don't you think that we as a group should have something that we're going to ask or demand of Dean Lewis when he gets over here? Specifically a moratorium by the administration on W11 immediately. I mean,
First of all, the administration cannot declare a moratorium on a Senate regulation because the Senate by the Board of Trustees is independent of the administration. If you want Rule W11 recalled, it must go through my committee, which is the chairman of which is the Senate Committee on Undergraduate Student Affairs, and which is responsible for the W rules. And I'll make this statement to you. I'm the chairman of that committee, which has no real power except to control the agenda. And if you would like W11 recalled, and you get a referendum, not from the students here, but from a random sample of Penn State students by a regular poll, and they want W11 recalled, I will put it as an emergency item on the committee's agenda. But the only way you get W11 recalled is through Senate action, not by an administrative moratorium.
the administration continues to use W11 to bring disciplinary actions against students. The administration is saying we will no longer use W11 to bring disciplinary actions against students. This is a moratorium. The Senate doesn't have interest to say anything about it. All the administration has to do is say, we will not use it. Get Lewis over here and tell him that we do not want him to use that for disciplinary actions anymore.
I answered your first question, sir. You asked where were the students when W11 was originally written, and the answer is very simple, that until a few years ago, students had absolutely nothing to say about the running of the university, and nobody asked their opinion.
Wait a minute. Please, let's let Dr. Levin talk. Ask your questions on those mics. They're open.
This damn thing is as noisy as the Senate. The fact remains that they still don't have anything to say about the running of the university, but at least they're interested now. Therefore, it seems to me it would be fair of me to get a voice or mandate from the students before I do anything about W11. That's the only basis on which I'm asking.
The water tunnel is not essential. I don't give a damn, really, about it essentially. It has a certain stance. It has a certain moral stance, but the liberation of black people is just as moral, if not more moral, than a tabloid. I don't think you realize that the black issue is the essential issue, because the issue includes your liberation too. If you don't believe that, think about it.
I represent the Ad Hoc Committee for Senate Reform. But what you're talking about here is exactly what we're trying to do. We're trying to get substantial student representation on the Senate. So it can truly be a university Senate, not simply a Senate or a faculty Senate. Like we're talking 100, 150, you name it. Like it's an arbitrary number. Student votes on the floor. There are no votes. Like every one of these issues you're talking about, women's rights, and a third of the university senate consists of students, immediate implementation of the Douglas Association's 13 demands, withdrawal of W11. Where do you think all these are made? You go and ask the administration for all this, and they're going to cop out. They're going to say, sorry fellas, we can't help you. You go see the faculty senate. And it'll be all over right there. So where it's at is in the Senate. And if we get a lot of student votes on the floor, then we're going to have a very, and finally, a very substantial amount of power where we can decide what the hell is going to govern us.
Dean Lewis, he's taking us very lightly right now. If he felt this move was of any importance, him or one of his hard-headed points would have been over here 20 minutes ago to talk to us. Evidently, he doesn't feel it's very important. So let's carry the discussion over to Old Main. We'll talk there. They'll listen to us there. Let's go over there where the people are situated where they can listen to us, and we don't have to make them walk over here.
Mr.
So
Chairman,
let's go right away.
Mr. Chairman, I cannot personally urge anyone to go. As you know, everyone has their free will. I assume we're in a free university.
Mr. Chairman,
on the right.
I'd like to address myself to this question for the moment.
It is very tempting to storm the barricades, so to speak. It's very romantic. And no doubt, a lot of us feel right now, with the frustration that we've had watching the university play its games, that this is precisely the tactic that's required. I think we should think better on it. Not because it in itself is undesirable, but because what we're interested in gaining may not be helped by doing it now. We have many more activities today.
We're not suggesting going over and storming Old Main. What we are suggesting is we move this discussion to Old Main. They may not be willing to come over here to talk to us, but they sure as hell can't stop us from talking to them. They'll be able to hear us if we're talking in Old Main. They can't hear us here. We don't want to storm, we want to talk. We want them to hear us.
Now wait, let me speak, will you? Listen, I've seen you at every meeting for 3 days, and I'm tired of your junior radicalism. There's people in this room whose radicalism has been obvious and has been existing for 4 or 5 years. And I'm not bragging about radicalism, man. But what I'm saying to you is this. The people are here. We know that the Old Main is not going to answer to us. So we're here to decide what we're going to do ourselves. We're taking the initiative. Why do we go over to Old Main where we can't hear what we're saying, where we have to stand under hard stone steps, where they sit over there and laugh at us? Because when we get together here, when we get everybody together that we can from this university, and we fit something coherent, we have a coherent list of demands, which we already have, and we go over there and we say, we're giving you a week. Why do we troop over there every day? Walk over to Old Main. Yeah, dig it. I'm going over to Old Main. That's really cool. That's really cool. Right? We're here. We're talking about these things here. We can hear discussion.
discussion here. We can hear what the people have to say here. When the time comes, and we know what their answer is going to be, when the time comes, then we all go over to Old Main, then we stop going to classes, then we say we want an answer. But why troop over there every day and play junior grade radical? And that's what I want to know.
The wrap-in broke up before the delegation to Vice President Lewis had returned. After being assured that he would be accorded courteous treatment, Dr. Lewis agreed to appear at a faculty meeting that evening and to answer questions from faculty and students alike.
All that we're asking is that you communicate with Dr. Lewis and give him the chance to communicate with you. After all, you've continually said that you wanted to talk with him, to hear him. And I think it's fairly clear that if you interrupt, he's got the right to say that you really didn't want to hear him. And then he's going to leave. I don't think that's to your advantage.
Again, I remind you of our total agreement to keep your cool, listen, ask your questions as if we were all fellow human beings, which we are, and I insist we are. That's all we're asking. That's all that we've agreed to. Keep your cool, listen, talk, and we'll get on with it. I now present to you Vice President in charge of Student Affairs, Dr. Charles Lewis. Dr. Lewis.
Dr. Ketty, I want to thank the members of the faculty group that have met for some 6 or 8 hours, to my knowledge, and reports at this time, trying to search for appropriate means of communicating in a very tense situation within our university community.
The night that Dr. Lewis spoke in the Hub Ballroom was sort of a unique experience for a lot of people. I think, first of all, it's kind of odd in a university of this size you have a person, the Vice President for Student Affairs, who is not really a visible person. And I can recall my first initial response or attitude that night was listening to people, so many people in amazement say they'd never seen Dr. Lewis before and really had no idea who he was.
When reached this afternoon by several members of the faculty representing the group who is assembled tonight, I said if they could assure me courteous treatment, an opportunity to state the facts as I know them best, to my ability, to clarify some of the confusion surrounding events of the past several weeks on the campus, that I would be glad to meet with them for an hour or so. Some 2.5 weeks ago, after receiving a copy of the publication, The Garfield Water Tunnel, Volume 1, Number 1, I looked the matter over very carefully, sat down for some 30, 40 minutes, decided that this was below the standard of the university, that this publication being sold and distributed on the campus was not in the best interest of the general welfare of the university. I therefore directed members of my staff, colleagues, to so notify the students who had been indicated as publishing it and those who were distributing it to discontinue distribution and sales on the campus.
First question, well, here you are, right here.
I've been trying to get to see Mr. Lewis for several weeks now, and I would like to ask Mr. Lewis exactly how he determines the moral tone of the campus.
Okay. I would like to remind you that you waste time considerably each time you cheer on, and you waste it.
In answer to that question, let me say this is an opinion matter. It's a considered opinion on my part as a university officer responsible to weigh this matter, make a judgment, and if I am wrong, we refer it to the due processes defined in the University Senate in the forms of a disciplinary charge. We further ask in this particular instance, I should mention that following my instruction that the publication not be distributed and banned or sold on the campus, that I did confer with 3 members of the University Senate, the president of the undergraduate student body, the assistant legal counsel, and several members of my staff, passing around a copy of the material and saying, I have instructed that this not be distributed and sold on the campus. What is your counsel and advice? In other words, I did seek other opinion than my own. This was within a matter of 30 minutes of the issuing the instruction. I was asked on several times in that conference, was this temporary? To which I responded, yes, if there is better advice. The advice I received was to proceed within the university family, within the university procedures and policies, if there is to be disciplinary charges, to use the processes and the policies of the Senate and university that prevail. So it is a matter of personal opinion, which triggers an action in this case, and then you move it to the processes for definition. We have further asked the Senate Committee on Student Affairs, who in turn asked the undergraduate student government, to come forth with better guidelines to guide us in decisions of this kind in the future.
Dr. Lewis, my name is Warren Wood. I'm an instructor in the film department in theater arts. I'd like to thank you first for engaging in this dialogue, and now I'd like to proceed with it. I'm extremely concerned with what seems to me the assumption of the role on your part of a censor of what we as a faculty and what we as a student body may see, read, or purchase on this campus. I'm further concerned with the reasons that were given for this, the reasons being that the water tunnel was not a recognized student group. I find the reasons technical, trivial, and really a cover for what is in fact censorship on this campus. I am further troubled by what seems to me a real danger to the future of this university. I would like to think that Penn State is number one in something other than football and censorship. I would like to think that by your actions, this university is not becoming a laughingstock among American universities. My question to you, sir, is do you really feel that there is a need for the role of someone deciding what may or may not be read, sold, or published on this campus?
Yes, I think the question specifically, is there a need for some procedure and some way of deciding what the standard of the campus is with respect to what is sold or distributed on the campus? Yes, and this pertains beyond the classroom to the kinds of texts that are selected by faculty who have responsibilities in this area as to what materials they will use in their classes. I think in the case of less explosive issues than the question of language and freedom of speech, I think that there's a question of what kinds of items are sold on the campus. You can move to the question of what kinds of, you don't sell automobiles on the campus. Somewhere you draw some lines. I think there is an urgent need for someone beside one individual on the university to make that decision. That I am seeking through the appropriate counsel of the university.
What will you do? One, to aid the plight of the black people on this campus and throughout the state, and what will you do? Two, to implement the demands that were submitted to the administration on Monday.
I choose not to respond to the question concerning the list of, quote, demands presented to the President's office on Monday. The President has not responded. I therefore do not feel at liberty to discuss those. In the case of the 13 points submitted by the Douglas Association, I met with the President and 6 officers of that group. A 10 or 15 page statement of what is developing within the university halls has been presented to the group and distributed widely on the campus, I think published in its entirety in the student newspaper.
I think by and large the crowd was very respectful of his position, and although he had expected to come there and be booed and yelled at and possibly even have things thrown at him, I think the crowd was pretty much respectful of him and wanted to hear what he had to say.
The question period and our time is over. I will not recognize even you, Jim. The time has come, I think, for... I repeat that I am not about to recognize you. If you want to have a brawl now, that's your privilege, but I will not recognize you. I won't recognize anybody from the stage, anywhere else. We made an agreement. Dr. Lewis has lived up to his part of it. We made the agreement, I made the agreement, if you want to have a hassle, come ahead, buddy. But I'll tell you something else. Right now, you have been a fantastically beautiful audience. I am proud of you. I thank you, but we must release Dr. Lewis on our promise that the time of 9 o'clock would come and go with his departure. And I want you may not thank him. I thank him. It's time to go. Thank you.
It's been my impression that the majority of students there regarded that they had finally found a reasonably, to use the term, slick administrator who was very much convinced of the justice of his own actions and really, since he had the authority, did not care one way or another what the students felt.
Like, it really meant nothing, you know, like in terms of a viable answer from the administration. He was just there to sort of pacify the students, you know, his appearance, supposedly to speak, and his content was really, like he said, nothing, you know. Like, that was a waste, really a waste.
Wednesday, February 19th, passed with more meetings of students and faculty. On Thursday, the University Senate met in special session for the first time in its history to discuss the university's role in allowing a policeman to arrest a student in a classroom. No specific action was taken.
What we received, an amicable discussion with the top administration of Penn State concerning the peculiar problems faced by black students at Penn State and the peculiar problems that Penn State faces in acquiring a more reasonable balance of black students to white students.
The implementation perhaps will soon follow, we can assume.
The president has agreed to meet at regular intervals with representatives of the black students. He's agreed to meet with them in their own homes, in their own fraternity homes, rather than having them necessarily come to seek him. And I consider that a giant step forward.
We feel that the administration will meet with black students, the entire black student body, if possible, to explain their position, to come to a meeting of the minds, to knock down the barriers that exist between the thought on the administrative level and the thought of the black students. This gave us a way of seeing what our legislators were doing in Harrisburg. Two, it gave us a way of publicizing our dilemma here, our plight. Three, it gave us a chance to let our legislators, the people whom we elect, such as Mr. Irvis, such as Mr. Van and others. Irvis is, I'm using him as a personification of the rest of the black legislators and the black senator, see our plight here, to get them moving to support their people and the university campus, which is supported by substantial black tax monies.
Your job is to be this, to make us listen, whether you're white or black, or whether we're white or black, to make those of us who are in charge of your government and of your finances and of your world so far, those of us whose job it is to send some of you off to war and give you noble ambitions to die for, those of us whose job it is to try and give you an education and tell you you don't have anything to say about what we teach you, you've got to make us listen. You've got to make us hear what you have to say. And this is what I think we began today with this meeting with Eric Walker.
Senator Irvis, how do you assess the mood of the legislature in Harrisburg in terms of commitment for funds to extend the facilities of this university all over the state?
I think the legislature reflects the general population with surprising accuracy, sometimes too accurately. The general population, in my opinion, is in a retaliatory mood. It's ready to smash young people who, quote, we don't understand. It's ready to tell them, go sit in the corner and keep quiet. It's ready to say we're paying too many taxes now. It's ready to say take the money away from them if they dare to protest. And I suspect that the legislature is in agreement with that attitude.
Do you have advice for students who last term did in fact work through legitimate channels and petition the university with 3,000 signatures, in effect demanding a racially balanced university, and again in effect were told that it was nice that they were concerned, but don't worry about it?
Yes, I think, let's see if I can say this with some modesty. The fact that I am here speaking as bluntly as I am, making my statements publicly, I think is due to the fact that you university students have taken your stand. You have brought me here by the stand which you have taken, and because you've brought this to my attention, I am here. And because I am here, and because of the peculiar position which I hold, I am quite certain that your stand is going to be given a great deal more weight than it might have been if you hadn't brought this to my attention. I don't think your efforts were wasted at all. I think the legitimate way that you went about it is going to pay off. And I sincerely believe that.
For a small group of students, many of them were very impressed with the fact that the black students were able to get someone of as much supposed power as Mr. Irvis to come up here to speak for them. Because as you know, the radicals have no one to speak for them, nor do they have any community backing. The black students, as being representatives of the black community, have community backing. This is why we always say that we represent the black community.
On Friday, February 21st, the Douglas Association had requested that university flags be flown at half-mast as part of a ceremonies commemorating the assassination of black Muslim leader Malcolm X. The Daily Collegian reported that if the request were not granted, black students might lower the flag anyway.
Leader's supposed to be there. Our leader. Our leader should about using these things too.
We felt that black people have heroes who have not been honored by this country. As you know, there is no special day set aside for any of these black heroes to be honored by this country. And we felt that one way that this could be honored, these heroes could be honored, would be the lowering of the American flag. And the request was put before the administration.
Give me the rock.
Did it last. Did it last.
Watch that bag. Watch out, man. Because it's going to fly when it pops up. Don't give it a good snap. There it is. Coming down? Yeah, it's coming. Tell me when it gets halfway. All right. Okay, hold it. That's it. So the Johnny Green job. More. The other one.
This was something we as a minority of American population felt to be a holiday for us, and we wanted to be respected by having the flag lowered. And this was the main issue. I think it was more of a matter of, you know, whether minorities can have rights in this country without interfering with the majority. And obviously, by our minority rights, our opinions, it did interfere with the majority, and this was the issue.
Administration officials stated that flags on campus are lowered at the request of the state government, and that when no such request was received, the flags were raised to their normal position. The administration took no official action against any students involved in this flag-lowering incident.
No, they didn't ask, man.
Excuse me. Have your attention. We're going over to the service at the hub right now, the commemoration for Malcolm. Can you tell those people over there, those who didn't hear me?
This day is held sacred to black people throughout the country, throughout the world. We feel that Malcolm died for blacks, whites, yellows, reds, and browns. He did not hate whiteness. He hated things that white people, certain white people in this country had done to others. And in doing these things to others, they destroyed themselves.
Today, as we honor Malcolm, let's make this, from this day forward, a united effort. And we can begin right here on this campus and make it a united effort that maybe can mushroom throughout the country. We don't need a weekend rumble or taking over of a building or breaking up the Nittany line with hammers. We need some real revolutionaries. We don't need no name calling. We don't need to break windows at Old Main and then go back to classes on Monday. We're talking about doing something that's going to last, something that's going to continue. The Douglas Association isn't going to die when Rick Collins graduates. And I hope the red armbands don't all come off next week. If you've got a red armband on your arm and nothing in your heart, take the damn thing off. If you've got a black armband on your arm and you're walking around and talking about I'm black and I'm proud today, and on Monday you're going to be just as meek and as mild as you have always been, perhaps as our parents have been, take the damn thing off. I don't mean to sound radical or nothing.
Well, they had said in the paper beforehand that if the administration didn't give them permission to lower the flag, that they would break the locks off and do it themselves. And myself, along with several others who read this, we become very upset about it because we just couldn't imagine students saying they were going to do this, break rules, and then go ahead and do it and not have the administration do anything about it. So we thought the administration would do something about it, and when they didn't, that's when we decided to take things into our own hands and raise it ourselves.
We didn't take it off. No, I didn't put it up, but I would have put it up. Okay, well, excuse me, since you didn't put it up.
Would you please step down?
No, you step down, please. You step down, please. You step down, please. What for? Because we want to do something, you know. Okay? I'll step down. What do you? Okay. All right, you what's your point? Now, please stay down. Okay? Okay.
Well, my point is I have a right, just as much right as anybody else.
Okay, that's right. Okay, back up.
Hold it. Like, why did you?
I'm not discriminating against anybody.
No, we're not talking about
I just believe in what the country stands for.
Well, what does the country stand for?
It stands for equality and people's rights.
Yeah.
And it's not involving the majority of the people's rights are being.
Okay, hold it. Obviously, you didn't put it up. So who put it up?
There was a joint effort.
Were you in on the job?
Yes, I was in.
Oh.
Hey,
hold it.
Hold it, man.
You're my damn roommate. You know damn well what this is all about.
Well, that I
what the hell did you do that for? That was damn dumb, wasn't it?
Don't fight. Come on.
All right, but why do you say just because you request it to come down, it should come down?
No, that's
I can't
not the
understand
point. The point is that this country, and this man's talking about equality and freedom.
Right.
This country stands for, well, that's, and this country doesn't stand.
That's a argument, buddy. It's a simple question. These bunch of bigots out here can't even explain it. They can't see it by now.
This country is not perfect.
That's not a different matter. And we as black people, as well as a lot of white people, seem to think that Malcolm X, among other Americans, has the right to have the flag lowered on his commemoration of his assassination. All right, that's your view, right? Well, and if you, you know, like you don't have no view. Your view is that, but the niggas get the flag down. I'm Joe American.
If any white guy would have taken that flag down, I'd have put it back up.
Do you think I had the right to say my brother gets killed in Vietnam just because I think he was a hero, that I should have that flag at half-mast?
You bet. I don't know. I would have no problem.
I'm only one person. All right, but I'm only one person. You have to respect the rights of other people.
My brother,
I'm saying
to make an issue. It wasn't because of any great loyalty.
Well, what is
it was
the
to
issue?
make an issue.
What is the issue?
Who are you trying to kid?
What is the issue that they're trying to make?
Let's try to get publicity.
Publicity for what?
Try to bring out what the troubles are. Not
What are the
trouble? They're problems. The blacks need equality. I'm not arguing that point, but this is the wrong way. This is the wrong place. If you want to make an issue, there's other ways.
Where?
You don't have to make an issue by causing problems, trouble.
Well,
This student body into two sections right here.
Yeah, it's not. It takes two people to cause a problem.
One of them's very small.
I don't really see what your problem is.
I want the flag flown.
Yeah, so do I.
For what reason? Because that's where the hell it belongs.
That's right.
Why?
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 That's why.
It belongs right there.
Oh, okay.
Well, let's take a vote
here.
on
I can see that.
I think most of the guys who are here want it back up.
What?
The blacks have already voted. It's the only chance they get to vote. They voted to have the flag down today.
Get to vote.
How many guys want it up?
Guys want it up during class.
Oh, you guys got guts.
Come on, let's go.
Come on, stand up here right.
That's how many people want it. Then how many of you want the flag up out of all the people here? Is that right?
The majority want it down. Before anything starts here, I think we should look up an old man and watch them laughing at us, because old man is up there saying here's two groups of students that are fighting it out and we don't even have a hand in it. You know, like.
Yeah, I guess they get a real big kick out of that.
They're getting a kick out of this. They got a kick last Friday night too.
They know that if anyone gets hurt bad here, they're in trouble.
They're not in trouble.
Yes, they are.
No, they're not.
Because they saw it right under their window and did nothing about it. This is a secret talk.
University Education and Television. I know that.
So what it really boiled down to is that they were hostile toward black people, hostile. They couldn't, conceive in their minds that black people could have a holiday and would like the flag lowered. Like this was totally irrelevant in their minds, how we could have a holiday,
You think that many people give a about whether or not we have to flag it? You get all your boys, man. Get them all and bring them over here and see what happens.
And you'll also find out that there'll be an awful lot of whites fighting to keep that flag at half-mast.
I thank you. Thank you. There's a lot of whites right here. Hey, Clark, here comes George. George and his boys. George. Oh, my God.
What the administration wants.
She means something to us. That flag means something to us.
No, they're not fighting. They're not fighting.
Hey, I see that. You laugh in this man's opinion. Respect him talking. You should respect his opinion because he's a
all right, but he means something to black people. And as other Americans, and as the majority of white Americans, you should have that respect for us. And we have the respect for
Well, I don't know
America.
if you represent the majority of the black piece.
On this campus, he does. He is president of the
Well, you see, the flag, the American United States flag, is not regulated by the university.
But then the university.
But then again, just remember that we're American citizens. Oh, fine, so am I. So that's, if that's right, then let them finish.
Dr. Walker was supposed to give me a reply yesterday. He did not. I asked him to give me a simple reply, why they were not or why they were. And they weren't going to do it. See, this is the thing. They refuse to listen to it. Seriously.
Guys, you guys
seem to think this is all racial, 100% racial. Well, I'd do this if it was a white person taking down that flag. I must have said that 50 times.
It wasn't worth it, when we look back on it, and the hassle we went through to, that possibly it could have been physical violence, over the flag, over a man we're trying to commemorate.
The flag may be foreign to us, you see, and the flag might not have really been dedicated to the aims of Martin Luther King or Malcolm X. The flag may in truth be only a white person's flag, a white American's flag, and it might not be ours. It might not really have been worth the trouble.
Only a handful of students remained when administration officials arrived to lower the flag at 5:30 p.m. Other than the broken locks and trampled grass, there seemed to be little damage, except that a serious polarization was developing between activists of conservative and radical viewpoints.
But I think this was the first time we really saw an extreme amount of what I think is the potential for danger in any student movement like this. We saw a group of students who, let's say, were maybe more conservative, or students who didn't hold the same opinion as the people who wanted to lower the flag. And so they offered some sort of resistance to this attempt to lower the flag. I think this is where the whole problem in any of these student movements lies. It's the ultimate confrontation, or the most dangerous confrontation, doesn't exist between the students and the administration, but students and other students.
On Saturday, February 22nd, President Walker released a statement to a local newspaper answering the 9 demands submitted earlier in the week by the steering committee to reform the university. Dr. Walker's reply read, in part, "To ask me to respond to non-negotiable demands in the name of academic freedom is a clear contradiction in terms." The reply did not treat the 9 demands specifically. At a Saturday night sleep-in at the Hetzel Union Building, steering committee leaders claimed that the demands are negotiable, but the contents are non-negotiable. They called for a mass meeting at Old Main the following Monday to negotiate the implementation of the demands with the administration. This brings us to a significant date on our calendar of activities for Penn State 1969. February 24th marked the high point for student activism on campus during the past year. The events of that day reflect all the various factors which bear on the subject of student activism at this university. On that date, the Pennsylvania State Senate, by overwhelming majorities, passed and sent to the House of Representatives 2 bills aimed at preventing disruptive protests by college students. One provided for a $150 fine and 3 months in jail for preventing the orderly conduct of a university's affairs. The second provided for revocation of state scholarships for students convicted of crimes stemming from campus disturbances. Also on February 24th, Penn State President Eric A. Walker appeared before the Appropriations Committee of the Pennsylvania Senate to present the university's $67 million budget request for 1969-70. Over half the members of the Senate turned out, an unusual number for a budget hearing, but few asked questions about the Penn State budget. Most senators wanted to know what Dr. Walker planned to do about student activism. Several insisted upon firm action against any student who disrupted campus activities. Dr. Walker said the axe will fall on those who disrupt classes, but pointed out that the university had few legal tools with which to deal with disruptive students. He said that it would be helpful for the legislature to give him more power to act against protesters. And on Monday, February 24th, 1969, the chain of events which began with the banning of the Garfield-Thomas water tunnel reached its climax.
Non-negotiable. In other words, he said,
At about 3 p.m., a large group of students gathered on the Old Main steps. Tom Richdale, campus chairman of SDS and spokesman for the steering committee to reform the university, spoke to the group. The steering committee had presented a list of 9 non-negotiable demands to President Walker's office 1 week earlier. Now they were back to insist upon a reply.
Now, about the non-negotiable aspect of these demands. We've said We will negotiate the implementation of these demands. We will not negotiate a change in the content. That's the way it stands now. So what we're going to do now is the members of the steering committee will go up and receive some reply from the administration. And what we'd like is all the students here to come in with us and receive that reply. By the way, people, it's perfectly legal to go inside at this time.
Secretaries in the President's office complex were sent home early. A number of administration officials and members of the campus security force remained in the area. About half the students had followed Rich Dale and the steering committee inside the building, but the President's office was closed to visitors.
What we're asking is for a member of the administration to come up here and make a statement in reply to our statement. And that is all we're asking. We feel we should all stay here until we have a clarifying reply from the administration. What we have done to the people outside is we have asked for any administrator to come out of their locked offices, any administrator to come out and make a statement to the students gathered inside. We'd appreciate it if every student outside, if you're a student, come inside and hear this reply from the administration.
It is generally accepted that a spirit of academic freedom must prevail within the university community. You ask me to respond to non-negotiable demands in the name of academic freedom, which this group has done. It was the PA system. Academic freedom.
Somebody tell me.
Come out and say it. Come out if you want to hear.
This is Raymond Murphy, the Dean of Students. The 9 demands presented to Dr. Walker 1 week ago were presented in a form which was interpreted as ultimatum. Mr. Richdale informed me at 1:30 today that the meaning attached to the statement non-negotiable has been changed as a result of the Saturday night's events in the hub. This change has not been relayed to President Walker.
We'll wait till
The lack of documentations of names on the original demands necessitated the following press release by President Walker rather than an answer to individuals. I would like to read to you the statement by Dr. Walker, which appeared in Saturday's Center Daily Times. A group calling itself the Steering Committee to Reform the University has presented me with a list of 9 demands which are termed, quote, non-negotiable, unquote. It is generally accepted that a spirit of academic freedom must prevail within a university community.
That's correct.
To ask me to respond to non-negotiable demands in the name of academic freedom, which this group has done, is a clear contradiction in terms. Academic freedom is impossible if any group has the right to impose its will by disrupting the orderly processes that alone allow it to thrive. The end of Dr. Walker's statement.
Where's Dr. Walker?
Harrisburg.
So what's the answer? What are you saying? Exactly what we made the answer. Something. Come on! We've been waiting too long!
Where's the men's room?
You're educators, aren't you? You haven't said a damn thing! What is that true?
Tell it like it is, Bert.
You have to come back and say more.
Bullshit.
Thank you for the reply. Would you mind commenting on one person?
Someone said it.
Excuse me.
Don't break it.
I'm not going to break it.
Now, what I feel we should do, we've had a reply, quote, from the administration. I can't make any statement on this. I know my own feelings. I thought it was a non-reply, and that's a personal statement, which can be quoted. I think we should throw this open to some kind of discussion here on what we feel we should do in face of this reply. So if anyone feels they have something relevant, if someone feels they have something relevant, perhaps they could come up here and say it in an orderly fashion.
You have a number of options when your demands have been termed non-negotiable or rejected, as I think they just were. Whether you know it or not, these demands were rejected. You were rejected. You have a number of options. You can go out the door like regular androids. You can sit here and philosophize until they throw you out of the building at 5 o'clock. Or you can be men and women.
They keep talking about how destructive we were, and you all know we haven't destroyed a thing, but they're getting ready. They're getting ready for an excuse to stop us. Now, you just can't take this kind of answer, like Rick said. It's not an answer at all. They haven't even approached us with anything resembling an answer at all. They haven't disagreed with our goals, just with us.
What President Walker has done is given us the proverbial finger. And, see, when two people aren't communicating, what can you do, when one person gives the other one the finger? You can either get mad and smack the guy, or you can try to understand him and try to maybe give him a second chance and reason with him. That's what we have to decide to do.
We, as students, have used words like sit in and talk and time and wait. Now, they must be pretty paranoid if they call leaving when you're asked, disrupt and destroy. Now, what we're here for now is to sit and wait for a reply. Something a little more suitable than the last one.
I don't recall any speeches that advocated students tearing the building apart. I think those speakers would have been booed. I don't recall any that advocated leaving immediately because the students inside were wrong. I think most of the people in there agreed on certain basic things, that they were sincere in their beliefs that their demands were legitimate. And this is very important because whether you agree with the students inside or not, I think you've got to give them a certain credit for being sincere.
The fact of the matter is that we have about 2,000 students, or maybe 1,000 or 2,000 students in front of Old Main, majority booing us. Now, we don't want this kind of crap. We want to unify the student body. So we've got to get something that everybody's going to back. We've got to get we cannot inhibit people's freedoms. We must keep everybody together. In order to do this, we're just going to have a general lack of cooperation. By lack of cooperation, I mean like keep the girls out of the dorms all night, never bring them back. This would be great for everybody. Really be a great time. So this is the kind of tactics you got to adopt. Something that everybody's going to back up.
One of the things I think we ought to do is not play on Eric's terms. We got to play on our terms. We got to define disruption in our way, not in Eric's way. One of the things we're doing right now, in a very legal manner, is disrupting the university. Because we're in this building and all the administrators are out, and they can't do their work.
They can if they wanted.
Okay. We're only going to be playing Eric's game if we stay here and get our heads busted open, because then he can throw us all out, and next year he has a nice, calm campus. So what we can do is wait here until whoever's around the administration, Murphy, calls in the Bulls. When the Bulls come and they pull out their clubs, we walk out and we come back again tomorrow.
That's right.
Yeah. And we'll have to call in the Bulls every day. That's certainly going to disrupt them.
Beginning, the different students in SDS would get up, and they didn't know what they were going to say, and they were kind of groping, and they didn't know what all the students were actually there for, and they certainly didn't know what the students were thinking. So that they tried to get kind of a consensus of opinion on what to do, and they took these votes in the truest of participatory democracy that the New Left is always talking about.
I just talked to Murphy. This is Murphy's answer. If the demands are negotiable, you go through your legitimate channel, USG. How many people want to go through USG? How many people want to stay here until somebody gives us a decent answer? That's your answer, Dean Murphy. That's your answer. All right. I'm from USG, and I'm here. Now, the point that you're making right now, the point that we're all making right now, is not so much the 9 demands that were enumerated, but the fact that you're not being recognized as responsible adults. Most of you are over 18. In any state, that's considered mature. So whatever you do today and tomorrow, the rest of the week, the rest of this year, just remember that you have to act in a responsible and mature way. All right? Responsible.
He says act in a responsible and mature way. To me, maturity implies a commitment, and a commitment to a cause. We have a commitment to a cause. The commitment is, are we students who have been tramped upon again and again and again, or are we not? I think we are. Always, we've said, always we've heard, wait. Go through committees, go through channels. The administration comes out and says to us, nothing. We want from the administration a statement that clarifies their point beyond that. What will they do? That's what we want. We want a statement that says specifically, they'll do this, they'll do that, they'll do this. And I think we should wait and hear that statement from an administrator.
Walker has refused to answer these demands in any definitive way at all. Once again, he has told you that you do not have a voice in what goes on in this administration. Now, until you are willing to definitively show him that you are not going to sit back and let him deny the rights that you have as the people who make up this university, well, you're just going to wallow in inaction. There are a large number of people who will sit in this building after 5 o'clock. So I urge all of you, when 5 o'clock comes, just sit in. We stay here until the cops come, they ask us to leave, and then we go out single file. All right, look, so we stay here until the cops come, we show our commitment. We come back again at 4 o'clock tomorrow. We stay until the cops come. And maybe pretty soon the cops are going to get tired of coming.
I really don't think they're going to get tired of coming. If you'll remember the law that's now before the state legislature, if that thing passes, what we're doing right here is subject to 3 months in jail and $150 fine. Now this thing has a good chance of passing within the next week. If we stay here and confront the police, it'll probably pass within the next week. Now, this is going to sound reactionary. So I'm stuck with it. I think any way we go now, they're going to pass that dumb law. Right. Any way we go, whether we stay or whether we leave, that law is going to pass, and this thing here is a crime. And then they won't have to come and ask us to leave, because what we're doing will be a crime, and we'll get busted anyhow.
they've got us right or left, I'm afraid. I say we disobey fascist laws. What happened in Germany was that people said these are the laws, I have to obey them. If this law is obviously, this law is designed to control us, this law is designed to make us not be able to think what we want, not be able to read what we want, as went through before. When are we going to finally stand up and say we're people, that we have our rights, and we're going to fight for them?
I've been in and out of this building for the last 2 weeks. I've been up and down College Avenue. I've been in and out of the hub. I've talked to faculty. I've talked to students. I've talked to administrators. And today I've decided that I'm going to stay because I don't feel like coming back and forth every day.
Demands have been set, used to be non-negotiable and now are negotiable. A couple thousand people around Old Main can't negotiate any demand. Somebody will have to act as a negotiator. I suggest that us staying here today only proves that these demands are non-negotiable. If we want them to be negotiable, we want to see them worked out, then I think somebody will have to sit down and talk about it.
I have an answer.
Of course, there were some student government leaders who were in Old Main who were trying to first calm the students down and then try to tell them at first that they should leave because they'd get in trouble if they stayed past closing time and could get thrown out of school. But these students weren't listened to, and the president of the student government spoke, and the treasurer spoke, and the vice president spoke, and no one really seemed to care who these people were or what they were saying.
A commitment has to be made now by USG. Okay, USG will stay. All those in USG are going to stay. Raise your hand. High.
USG tried to involve itself more directly with the dissident students by basically putting itself on the line, saying that if the students would leave at the time the building was to close, that those members of USG that were present would remain and negotiate the 9 demands of the steering committee. This brought about a reaction from the crowd inside Old Main saying, no, we won't let USG take the full rap. We'll stay and back USG. This surprised me.
Okay, those on USG stay. Now, I want the others who are not on USG to please leave now, and we'll be back again. Wait a minute, okay. Okay, when the police come and ask you to leave then, but USG will stay. And we'll be here again tomorrow at 4:45.
Why is USG going to stay?
It met with the response I really expected it would. Rather than the people wanting to leave, they thought, well, they'll just stay along with us, because the students who were in Old Main really didn't respect USG, really didn't expect the opinions that we were expressing. And so I think that they thought, you know, well, why let these people stay when we have just as much right to be here and represent our demands as they do?
This is Raymond Murphy again. We'd like to read a statement to you now, please. This is to advise you that your conduct seriously interferes with and disrupts the normal activities of the university. Your conduct would subject you to university disciplinary proceedings, court orders, and/or arrest. However, you are further advised that no action will be taken by the university or the law enforcement agencies against any of you who leave this area immediately and seek any further interference with university activities. If you do not leave immediately, all appropriate measures will be taken to ensure order on the campus, and those responsible for this disruption will be subject to regular university disciplinary action. court orders, and/or criminal prosecution.
As the Lord's... Come on, let us finish! Let him finish!
In addition, you are informed that recent federal legislation requires the loss of federally financed student aid to any student participating in disruption of the university. I would like at this time to call to the microphone Colonel Pelton, the Director of Security.
No, you have to press the button.
I would like to have your attention. Now, I will make this statement and make it once. So if you want to hear what I say, either be quiet or yell. It makes no difference to me. You've heard what Dr. Murphy has told you. The building is closed at 5:15, and he has now turned the building over to me to take official criminal action. All right. My next move in fulfilling my responsibility will be to call a sheriff. I thank you.
There's no assurance that the police are going to inform you to leave, as is procedure. Now, you were already informed by Dr. Murphy and the guy from security. Now, that is sufficient, as far as they're concerned, to start any mechanism against you. Now, we told you that USG will stay here, take the head beating, and take the rap for you. Listen, we're also small enough a group that we can work out these problems. I mean, you can't work out a problem with 500 people. It's only common sense.
We're trying to make it.
To give it legitimate, but we don't want to
we're trying to make what's out there a little bit more legitimate. So it's people trying to accomplish a purpose, rather than a group of people out there screaming and hollering. It's the only way USG is going to accomplish anything.
I see two things. Either we stay because we're representing these kids, and if they get beat, we get beat. That's one. Or else we take another action, whereas we take an action as a group, and we leave because we've tried. That's up to us.
That's defeatist.
And look at the attitude our leaving is going to have. It's going to have no attitude. Our leaving,
that's like telling us
if we leave, there'll be no more Thursday night meetings for a while.
There won't be any Thursday night
meetings. There won't be a need.
Or if there is one, it's not going to be worth the trouble.
It'll be sacred.
Then let's stay.
Okay, but did we not pass some sort of a resolution that said we cannot support disruptive actions?
It's disruptive if they don't leave after they're informed by the police.
Don't you? Wouldn't you feel like you're running out?
I'll wait till the police come. I'm not saying now. I'll wait till the police come. But when the police come,
I think if we leave and tell everybody out there is sure of what's going to happen to them, then I think we're walking out on people.
There came a time during the sit-in that those members of USG decided we should try to talk to some of the administrators that were present, because some had left because their working day was over. We tried to talk to a number of them.
Gentlemen?
Excuse me, Dr. Scott? We have a request that we'd like to make, and that is this Ted Harvey, the executive of USG, consult with the police when they come, and rather than have the police say to these people, get out, which will probably tend to disrupt more.
Say it now.
We are. We're trying to.
Say it to them now. And start as the vice president.
What he said was
He's throwing his hands up.
what he said is it's all over if we are not here now.
I think let's get into it.
Cooperation.
Some of them felt that they weren't in a position to make any authoritative decision, and others felt that it was beyond the point of a decision from one person, and they more or less said their hands were washed of the entire deal, and that there was nothing that they could, as a person or as an official of the university, do anything at that time. So, in a sense, the student government was left sort of caught short. There wasn't anything that we could do with those administrators that we thought something could be done with. And the administration, in a sense, walked out and left the students there to take whatever was to come about.
USG President Jim Walmer was admitted to the President's office complex to try to get more specific information about what actions the university planned against the protesting students. At this point, the building had been officially closed for about 2 hours.
As of 7:30 this evening, an injunction will be filed in Center County Civil Court. The injunction is as follows. This is what I was able to get from Center County Sheriff, Mr. Waite of Bellefonte. Mr. Waite informed us that the injunction will state in the effect that anyone in this building after 7:30 p.m. is liable to arrest for criminal trespass. I thought it was 5:15. I'm making this statement not because I believe in what they're doing, but because you better know. People have got to know what's going to happen. There is not going to be another warning. The university considers that it has given the warning. It does consider that it has given it. Through Murphy.
Those of you who were here last week to hear the university legal counsel speak, he said that the university has no ties at all with its security division and with the downtown police. He, in effect, was not telling the truth. The situation is this. This injunction is valid. We've had that confirmed. So I suggest that instead of standing where we all are here, where they can close off the doors, why don't we all go stand as close to the doors as we can, and then we can all walk out like we plan to do, and get this, a statement for the administration. We've said it over and over and over again that we're going to leave this building orderly tonight. Now, the onus is on the administration if they come in here and make some kind of a foolish play by trying to see off the doors. Because we have a confirmed statement from all of us that we're orderly, non-disruptive, non-violent, we're going to walk out. It's up to you, administration.
The group on the inside, I don't think there was that much physical danger to anyone involved, and I doubt very seriously that there was any real danger to any of the property. But it should be noted, I think, that inside, it was primarily the members of the Students for Democratic Society, SDS, that exercised a restraining and indeed actually a moderating influence on those students.
Go ahead. Hold it down for a minute. Hold it down, please. Hold it down, please.
Outside, it was extremely difficult for anyone to maintain any type of order. The group outside was chanting such slogans as "Burn, baby, burn," and they meant that to apply, of course, to the group inside.
And what caused the crowd outside to gather was a certain frustration, a certain feeling of being fed up with a group of students, a small group of students, getting all the headlines, continually barraging our senses with stories in the Collegian, with posters, with tables and everything, telling their side of the story as though they were the only side. I think, too, there was a real alarm that these people who seemed so ineffectual before were able to get several hundred students to stay in at Old Main, not only from 3 to 5 when it was open, but to keep these students after it had closed.
It could have developed into a very bad situation as far as violence is concerned, because the students outside were getting very upset that the administration wasn't doing anything. And I believe they were afraid that the administration was going to give in to them, as had happened up at places like Columbia or out at Berkeley, where the students were allowed to take over a building and remain in there for several days. And I don't think the students outside were ready to accept that.
Going to stick my neck out for these guys saying that they would leave on time. They haven't. They haven't left on time, and I hope somebody does something. But why don't you... Hold it, hold it. Hold on. But why don't you people disperse now and let the police or somebody else handle this and don't create an even bigger scene?
I spent some time standing on the steps listening to what the students outside were saying, and I saw this one student who wanted to come up and take the microphone away from one of the student government people and encourage everyone to follow him inside to drag everyone out by the hair. And he never did get the microphone, but he and some of his friends were out there, were very, very anxious to go in and bust some heads.
None of the supposed student leaders couldn't keep the crowd's attention. They could not speak without either getting booed down or jeered or something. And Jim Woolmer came up, said he represented the student body, and they just shouted him down, said he didn't. John Fox came up and tried to talk, and they just started yelling for a short yell state. And then in the crowd down below the steps, some of the guys insisted that I go up and talk. So I went up, and everyone just listened immediately because they pretty well knew what I was going to say. And I was all for getting the people out of there in one way or another.
Now, the only position I can take, because this is what the Congress told me, and it includes all your leaders, is that the only role I can play in this, and it's the role I've been playing tonight, is to mediate this and tell the people the straight facts. That's all I can do. The straight facts are that if these people don't leave once the actual injunction, and a court injunction has been filed, once that is read, they will be arrested, the building will be cleared. The police... Let me explain.
Let him explain. He'll tell you in due time. Now
the police are on their way now. Yeah, you better get up there. It's your people.
Tell them why we're here.
The people that are in this building believe in what they're doing, and you disagree with them. Right, all right. That's your right to disagree with them. Now, the police and the society are going to take care of that situation. That is a situation. These people believe in what they're doing, man. But I'll tell you, the worst thing that can happen now is for students to start fighting students. And I mean this. Because when that happens, maybe we can all wrap it up, because this campus is never going to settle back to the way it once was, or ever will be again.
I think if there were any danger of violence or a physical injury to anyone, as one person was injured that night, it would come from the group on the outside. And it was only by some exertions on the part of some student leaders and a handful of faculty members who were finally persuaded to come and talk to those students that any real damage, any real fighting, I think, was actually averted.
Now look, people, you've come here to express a feeling strongly, and for this you're to be respected. Now, you've expressed it. Now, somebody was just dragged inside. I don't know which side he came from, but he was bleeding from the eyeball, and we're taking him to written hour. You people are at Penn State. You're all in the same damn group, whether you agree with the other side or not. Don't, for God's sakes, hurt each other. Wait, please.
Quiet.
Now, if you want to shout names at each other, be my guest. But for God's sakes, don't throw things at each other. Instead of waiting around for something to happen, I'm going to try and talk the people inside and leaving quietly. Will you let them? Yes! All right, wait. Before you say no, fella, remember, if there is a fight, more than you is involved, including, incidentally, co-eds, who could easily be trampled in a rush. And the potential for hurt is great, and it's student against student. Would you please take them out if they don't annoy you, just to prevent bloody eyeballs? Because it's students versus student. The only people that suffer are students. You made your point, fellas, and you made it effectively. Now, why the hell hurt each other? Please. You're involved in a principle for which you ought to be respected. You've made your point. All we're trying to do now is prevent the bloody eye that got carried out of here. There are women in the group. A physical confrontation with thrown objects. We have blood. We have hurt students. All you're doing is fighting your fellow students.
We're not fighting.
I don't think this is a time for physical contact for the fun of it. You've made your principle. They've pulled back. They've pulled back. You'll have Palladino running interference. I'll run interference. George Wells, wait a minute.
Let him speak.
I'm afraid for the co-eds, fella. I know you're not afraid. Can you go out the side door? Be my guest. There are women in the group. For God's sakes, protect them. I know some of you don't want to go out. Some of you think you're fighting for a principle. Wait a minute. Will you follow me out and no elbows or anything, please? Tom, you want to come with me? Tom?
But we want some type of police protection because
you're
we don't want to
outnumbered.
go.
I know,
But the thing is, they told us it was too late. It was too bad. They weren't going to protect us.
I asked if I could go out and tell them to leave on your promise. You wouldn't. I was told no.
But the police, I called the state police. They said they were going to be here. They still haven't showed up. Where are they? The campus security.
We all know that we've been intimidated, whether you call it that or not, whether it be by students or by administration. Now we have a dean here, and he says there's faculty members outside. We're here to get something accomplished, are we not?
Yes.
Right. Now, will this dean call off all classes in engineering building tomorrow and have a meeting in the gymnasium where the students can speak about this and have the administration there or not? I don't think they will. Right?
Wait a second.
No, wait a minute. Someone says that's not academic freedom. I say we don't have academic freedom on this campus now in any way, shape, or form. It has to be decided by the students. That's what makes it freedom. So, what I propose is that we call off classes in this university until we get something accomplished. That's a viable solution. Why not speak to those people outside and ask them what they think?
Listen, I am from outside. I admit it. I represent the football team. I'm on the football team. I represent most of the people's opinions. Now, we don't want any violence. At least I don't. Most of the people out there don't. We feel, I don't know, somehow this isn't the right way to do it. But we just want no violence. We just want the people out of here. If we don't feel anybody should be dragged in from outside, such as the state police, to drag you people out. We figure it should be your own initiative. and then maybe talk things out or whatever. But if there's any fear of anybody from the outside hitting you, I'll talk to them. I have a voice out there, and I'll lead you out. I'll lead you out.
I am Lieutenant Kimmel of the Pennsylvania State Police. Quiet, hold it down. Sheriff Waite is here with an injunction from the Center County Court to read to the people inside. They will then be given an opportunity to leave the building. We are asking you people to cooperate with us and open a path so that they may get out. Touch it, hold it. If you people do not leave them out of the building peaceably, they will have a defense against the injunction. So we are asking you to please spread out a path and leave them leave here peaceably.
Hold it. My name is Richard V. Waite, Sheriff of Center County. I have here an injunction issued out of the Court of Common Pleas in Center County, Pennsylvania. The Pennsylvania State University plaintiff versus Alvin Youngberg, Tom Richdale, Norman Swartz, Rick Collins, Gary Potter, Julian Cockstein, Don Schwall, Joe Rusi. And now to wit the 24th date.
Hold it, huh?
And approximately 250 John Does.
I noticed that there was a feeling among a number of people that they hoped that no incidents would break out now so that the people inside could be made to feel like martyrs. And they hoped that they would just come out with that incident and be shown that the law must be obeyed and that they cannot have special privileges. And yet, on the other hand, nobody be heard or spit upon or done anything to make him believe that he was some sort of glorious martyr. Because once somebody believes he's a martyr, it's very, very difficult to convince him that what he was martyred for is wrong, and you get out of the range of intellectual argument and you just get into emotionality. It's very, very difficult to change his mind then.
The Old Main sit-in had lasted 7 hours, 5 of it in violation of an order to leave the building. Except for litter on the floor and scuff marks on the walls, there was no damage. One student suffered a cut on his face when a thrown egg broke his glasses. Other forms of injury were harder to assess. The red armband movement had achieved a high degree of unity, but now had the courts for an opponent if it chose further disruptive actions. The administration had succeeded in stopping the sit-in, but its occurrence, combined with the question put to President Walker by the Senate Appropriations Committee earlier in the day, left the administration with a difficult disciplinary situation. On February 25th, the day after the student sit-in at Old Main, Penn State President Eric Walker made the following announcement.
I'm convinced that a great majority of students and faculty want the university to continue its work in an orderly manner. The people of the state, the parents of students, the legislature, and the governor, by letter and telephone calls, tell me the same thing. Obviously, this is impossible if university buildings are occupied and people are prohibited from carrying out their duties. We expect, therefore, to institute proceedings which will result in the expulsion of any student who is found guilty of preventing any student from attending class, any faculty member from teaching or carrying out research, or any staff member from doing his work. Destruction of university property, unreasonably disturbing or interfering with the orderly conduct of the activities of the university, or advocating immediate active disruption or violence would also be cause for dismissal. I'm asking the Vice President for Student Affairs to prefer discipline charges immediately against any person if sufficient evidence is available to warrant such action. These charges will be given in writing. They will be heard by a special discipline court comprised of 2 undergraduate students named by the President of Undergraduate Student Government, 1 graduate student named by the President of the Graduate Student Association, 3 faculty members named by the Chairman of the Senate, and 3 members of the administration to be named by me. I've requested the names of the students and faculty by 9 o'clock, February 26, and I will ask the court to convene immediately thereafter. And if the charges are sustained, the appropriate action will be taken immediately.
The Office of the Vice President for Student Affairs charged 6 students with advocating immediate active disruption and with refusal to vacate a building upon direction by administrative officers. The board's hearings were not open to television coverage after one of the students objected to the fact that our films of the sit-in were made available for examination by the board, by the Office of the Vice President for Student Affairs, and by the students who were charged with disruption. The board met a number of objections from students and faculty members, charges that the board circumvented established disciplinary channels, that it was an ex post facto creation of the administration, that it denied students the right to legal counsel, and more. One student representative on the board resigned, claiming the students were being denied due process. He was replaced by an alternate. The board held 45 hours of hearings over a 5-week period. After 4 more weeks of deliberations, the board announced its findings: disciplinary probation for 4 students and a warning for 1 student. Charges against the 6th student were dropped by the administration. President Walker accepted the recommendations, and the Special Judiciary Board, for all intents and purposes, went out of business. The February 24th sit-in marked the high point in student activism at Penn State last year. The university's response, the use of a court injunction, had worked. Student activists were apparently not willing to confront the possibility of a jail sentence for contempt of court. Activism during the remainder of the year was scattered and ineffectual. The issues were again imported ones, and the crowds, though vocal, were small. In the middle of spring term, SDS members picketed and sat in against military recruiters. There were several reports of fistfights between radical and conservative students. The demonstrators and their advisors had turned noticeably camera shy. On the 4th day of the demonstrations, Center County Sheriff Richard V. Waite returned to the Penn State campus to serve another injunction. This one had not been obtained by the university, however, but by several members of Young Americans for Freedom, the ideological foes of SDS. There was no more recruiting scheduled for the term, and the injunction was lifted after 1 day. 2 weeks before final examinations, SDS staged a protest meeting following reports that police had killed a student at the People's Park at the University of California in Berkeley. The protesters proclaimed the old main lawn to be People's Park East. On the first day of the protest, students lowered the American flag to half-mast. University personnel raised it again with the statement, "We intend to keep it flying full staff." The next day, the protesters again lowered the flag. This time, university personnel made no attempt to raise it. Whereupon, a group of students opposed to SDS's actions declared that they would raise the flag. There were scuffles, resulting in torn shirts and bloody noses. And a vigorous tug of war over the flag's ropes. In the end, the second group of students succeeded in raising the flag. Later, a Pennsylvania State police officer, dressed as a student, arrested one of the demonstrators. The student was handcuffed and led to a police car. The charges were malicious mischief to private property, breaking the lock on the flagpole. The complaint was signed by a member of the Dean of Student Affairs staff. A number of other demonstrators tried to block the car's path, but allowed it to continue after being warned that they were interfering with police officers. The student was later released by a justice of the peace after paying for the damages to the flagpole. On June 14th, the Pennsylvania State University awarded 4,800 academic degrees in commencement ceremonies at Beaver Stadium, and the 1968-69 academic year was over. Here are some final notes on the year now past. Charges against 4 students who published and distributed the Garfield-Thomas water tunnel were dropped after the trial judge ruled that the publication was not obscene under Pennsylvania law. University Senate Rule W11, under which the water tunnel had been originally banned, was modified. But Rule W20, which permits the banning of any publication incompatible with the standards of the university, was added. The Douglas Association changed its name to the Black Student Union. Its leaders claim that with campus attention focused on the water tunnel, the sit-in, and the Special Judiciary Board, that their list of 13 demands was overlooked. The 9 demands of the Steering Committee to Reform the University have not been implemented. Black students made only one request for President Walker to meet with them in their homes. That meeting was held. Pennsylvania Senate Bill 227, providing for a $150 fine and 3 months in jail for interfering with the orderly processes of a university, is still awaiting action by a committee of the House of Representatives. The injunction which ended the Old Main sit-in is still in effect, although most of the students named have left the university. Administration officials consider it legally useless. What you have seen is a rather longish account of events which took place on Penn State's University Park campus last year. It is a noisy, confused, complex report. It is by no means complete. Much has been ignored or treated superficially in order to give detailed attention to the subject of student activism, who is involved in it, why they are involved, what the results of this involvement have been. This account has given a predominantly student view of this year's events. In the context of what is happening on campuses all over the nation, it seems important that we understand, as well as possible, the Penn State student. Critics have often claimed that the student activist represents only a small minority of student opinion. This seems to be true. Out of the main campus enrollment of 25,000, only 500 to 600 students took part in the Old Main sit-in, with another 1,000 outside the building. But there seems to be some general support of the activists' goals, if not their tactics. And in an attempt to determine what an average Penn State student might think, we took this completely unscientific, but completely random poll of student opinions.
The big thing about it was students against students. And with the campus split like that, I don't think you can really get that much done.
The group that sat outside, I didn't think too much of, because my opinion was that they were out there just for excitement, maybe to beat up on somebody, and the ones inside, I think they wanted to get something done. I don't know if they knew the right way to do it. I don't know, but like they're trying something.
Well, I was just out there because I felt they shouldn't be in there, like a lot of my friends were. But then there were also ones there, like the one that threw the egg, they were there just to instigate trouble, I believe. And that's just the way I feel. I was there because I believe it was wrong for them to be in there. Like I was showing my support for them to come out, just the same way they were showing the support for their demands. And that's the way I feel.
Well, I think they're sincere.
more than anything, but they go too far when they start interfering, like with students that want to go to classes and for students who want to get through the hub. I just don't think it's right. I mean, I think their goals and their objectives are okay, but not when they interfere with everybody else.
Student activism was once good, and now it's just going too far. And like in Harvard, it's nothing here compared to some of the schools. But at one point it wasn't bad. I'll admit I was at Old Main Hill, one of the people, like looking the situation over. That's what I did. But as time went on, I grew away from the SDS because just too many things that they have done don't coincide with a college education. That's what I'm here for.
Well, I'll tell you the truth. I've been so busy going to school, I haven't really had much time to pay attention to all the activism on the campus.
I'm just kind of happy that, the police haven't had to come in and the students haven't had the police to come in. And I think it's pretty healthy myself. I'd much rather see it than everybody going in one direction.
To the most part, I agree with what they're doing because I don't think they're really being harming anybody here. And as long as they're not destructive, I go along with it 100%.
To a certain extent, I go along with it because this university is isolated and some of their policies are very isolated, and I think they're very stagnating, and this university needs to be moved up somewhat as far as their policies are concerned, up with the times.
I think it's real good that the students are starting to show some interest in what's around them, especially in their college community and the nation as a whole. But I don't condone the violence. I don't condone the protesting of simple things just to protest.
Well, I think that one of the best things about something like that happens is that it makes the students who aren't aware of the problems of the university aware of them. It wakes up those who don't bother to listen. Everybody's just happy to get through Penn State and any university. Just go and get what you can out of it. But if there are problems with education, people don't stop to think about what they are until something like that happens.
A good deal was said last year about communication, mostly the lack of it, between students and administrators. Administrators have generally agreed to meet with students in small groups, those who represent a student organization or a particular student viewpoint. But they've been reluctant to engage in open question and answer sessions with large groups of students whom they feel are disrespectful or potentially unruly. The only prominent persons who met with students under those conditions were from off campus. Many of them were public figures or politicians, such as Pennsylvania Governor Raymond Schaefer.
Am I to assume that you said that the university should have the right to censor student publications? Can you answer that?
Yes. I say they do have that right.
Not me, the administration, right? That the administration has the right to censor student publications if they're not in keeping with the moral tone of the campus.
That's right.
All right, now how can you say then in the same breath that this is conducive with the free academic atmosphere of a university? Also, don't you think that this might prejudice court cases which arise from this?
No, that isn't true. And what do you... You finished?
Yes.
Do you have anything else to say?
No.
All right. What do you say is academic freedom? Is academic freedom the right to do anything an individual wants to do without recourse to anybody?
As long as it doesn't harm someone else.
Well, how do you know that it isn't harming someone else? Who makes that decision?
I think I remember when I was about 4 or 5 years old saying, sticks and stones can break my bones, but names will never hurt me.
Oh, but that isn't true. That's an old wives' tale, and I'm sorry that you're using it. One of the worst things in the world is fomenting a riot. We have a law that says you can't stand up in a theater and yell fire. Somebody could get crushed from that. And that's just a word, isn't it? We have a constitution that says you shall not incite to riot. All right, well, all I'm saying is that a university has a duty to the total community with reference to the moral tone of publications or anything else. And it ought to be done on good taste, and somebody has to have that authority.
Shouldn't that be decided by civil courts?
Not necessarily, of course not. You're in a university community now, and you should, if you want to stay here, abide by its rules. Yes, ma'am.
You stress communication really highly. I'd like to know why you shouldn't come and talk to us as a group of students. And Lewis and Walker have told us that they won't talk to us because they consider a group of students this large a mob. and that there could be no dialogue.
Well, I can't agree with that. I don't agree with that. I don't think this is a mob. I know Dr. Walker, and I know that he'd be very happy to meet with you. All right, now, I'm telling you my opinion. I don't know that I'm right. I know that he's a very articulate, a very dedicated, a very wonderful man. And he has done a tremendous job for this university. And I think that you do a man an injustice because you think something has happened and not really follow it through to its proper conclusion. Now, I mean that. Now, I'm willing to come and talk with you. I don't think this is a mob. Sure, there's a great group, and we can't get as much discussed as we could in smaller groups. But I don't see any reason why any member of the administration wouldn't be willing to sit at least and talk with you. That doesn't mean that they have to agree with you.
I have gone to the administrators, and I have talked to them. I have to be on the other side of the issue from some of these other students. But I have asked, a group of us have asked to talk to Dr. Lewis. Dr. Lewis was busy, but they gave us the man right under him. So I think that some of these...
All right. You're absolutely...
Sir.
All right, now wait a minute. Now, please, you see, don't say those things because they're automatically you cut the other end immediately by just saying you disagree with him as if he's wrong. He may be just as right as you are, and he has a right to express himself.
He goes into the office as one man.
Have you been to the office yourself?
I was in All Main the other
No. Have you gone to see Dr. Walker?
We went to his office.
Oh, you go to see him? Ask for an appointment?
I didn't ask for an appointment.
All right.
They said, when we walked in the door, Eric Walker is not in.
Well,
All right, now, wasn't that, but if he wasn't in.
Wait a minute, one at a time.
General reaction in Harrisburg to what's been happening at Penn State in the last couple of weeks.
Well, I would say that there is a general concern in the General Assembly, and look, I wish you would not have such an attitude because, you see, you get the kind of government you deserve. And all of you are going to be voting fairly soon. This is the truth. And if you don't believe it, then you don't belong in a free society because in a free society, everybody has a responsibility. And don't you forget it. If you don't remember anything else that I've said this afternoon, remember that. And that doesn't do any good to make gestures either. Now, look here. I just want to say this. We're all a part of a community. We're all a part of a community. And there is a reaction in Harrisburg, just as you've read it in the papers. There's a reaction among the citizens all over because they see our fine institutions of higher learning. They see acts of violence many places. We in Pennsylvania have been a lot better off perhaps than any other state, and I'm grateful for that. And I have great confidence in all of you in helping me make sure that this continues. That's why I'm here. But when they see violence in San Francisco State, for example, and then they see a sit-in, well, why do you applaud that? Do you like that? You do. You like that. You like violence and coercion. Well, why did you applaud then? Why did you applaud?
Because I like what they're fighting.
Oh, what are they fighting for?
They're fighting to determine their...
You don't even know what they're fighting for. Here. In any event, what I'm trying to say is that when they see violence and then they see a sit-in, a taking over of property here, they look on it as almost the same thing, and then there's a public opinion arousal. After all, we have 12 million people in Pennsylvania, and they are concerned about order, not only in the colleges, but in every other aspect of our community life. And there cannot be academic freedom without order. There cannot be justice without order. There cannot be liberty without order. And that it's incumbent upon each of us as individuals to make sure that we have that. And the idea that individuals should be able to get their ideas put into effect by coercion or violence or seizure of property, to me is foreign to intellectual freedom. Thank you.
The students whose comments we've used throughout this program are not typical Penn State students. They are involved and they are active. Their points of view range from strongly conservative to strongly liberal. Their concern, their involvement, represents a significant change in campus attitudes compared to past generations. Their vantage point with regard to student attitudes is much better than our own. Perhaps it would be wise to listen to some final comments from them about the events of the year behind and the one ahead.
From the standpoint of the movement, the tactical maneuver of non-violently, in quotation marks, seizing Old Main served very much to solidify and organize, I think, even greater the student movement that had grown out of the water tunnel. On the whole, I don't think the same can be said about the response of the university community. If anything, the tactics served to polarize the student body more than it has ever been in my recent memory into two opposing camps. The first one being very much for the demonstrators, the second one very much against them. Both of these camps, of course, reflected a fundamental split in the student body, which probably cannot be in any significant way reconciled.
You get people put into two camps, for you or against you. This tends, of course, to raise quite a bit of opposition to your group, and this can be a difficulty. But more importantly, it strengthens the feeling of those who were on your side at least somewhat before, that now they're really with you, now they're emotionally with you. Once you get into a fight, say, between them and us, the guy who wasn't sure has to choose sides, and you hope that he chooses your side. And once he does, he becomes a much more emotionally committed person, and as an emotionally committed person, he's going to work a lot harder.
I have kind of a cynical view of the end result of all of this, or of little as it has been, and that is that each of the students' preconceived notions have been kind of reinforced by what has happened this year. In other words, the students who were alienated, who were frustrated with the bureaucracy of Penn State and with the state of the country now, just have been pushed further along that road. They've been pushed because of the seeming indifference and rigidity of the university administration and how little they've been able to change things here. If anything, they're just further alienated. The students, on the other hand, who came here with the purpose only of getting that degree, of getting out and making their $10,000 a year, with playing the game by the rules set down by the administrators, the students who frequently are very short-tempered with those who kind of step across that line, are just, I think, further disgusted with the radical element and are just as happy as they ever were to be members of the establishment, which they soon will be after they graduate.
Many of the students who were involved in some parts of the movement this year may graduate and take with them some of the restraints and some of the good judgments that they may have exercised, leaving behind sort of an unpredictable situation. Obviously the tension and obviously the necessity for a lot of these demands or these requests is still going to be here in the fall and next year, and I think the university is probably in store for a lot more of the tense moments in regards to the solution to some of these problems.
And if they do not place certain authorities in the student government, which students can have faith and confidence in, then it's going to be a worse year for the university as a whole. Then it's going to be a year where student government will become less credible and less a crutch for the administration to rely on than what they did this year.
After the water tunnels banned, we had the Red Armband movement, which attracted a lot of students. And I don't think you can consider these as backing the radicals, but as backing a principle which they believed in free speech, and with the water tunnel. Now, I don't think you can call them radicals just because they're for free speech on campus. Now, after this issue died down, you certainly saw no more support of the radicals than you did beforehand. So I believe it was all a temporary thing.
Yeah, next year, I think the administration, unless they wholeheartedly go through some type of reevaluation of exactly what they've been doing and their role towards students and their responsibility towards students, the next year they're going to find themselves in a very tight situation. like students will be coming up here, especially black students. The black students that will be coming out of high schools next year will not be the same type of students here now. They will not have that same type of rationale, I don't think. Their thing is going to be, like, why are there not more black students here? And their chain of action will probably be much more severe than what we have been talking about. Like, you can just look at the newspapers and see that, the cats in the high schools are like, they are really like the center of the student movement in terms of action. Like, they know what they want, and they're really committed to go out and get it. And if it means possibly, burning down a building, burning down Old Main, like, I think this could possibly happen next year. And also, the same with the white students that possibly will be coming up here. Like, you'll have a different degree of radicalization. They will be a little more radical than last year's freshmen, to the extent where, instead of lowering the flag, they may, tear up the hub, destroy, like, I think the university should really reevaluate exactly, what its responsibility to students, and in terms of communication, in terms of what students want, in terms of what a university is. Is it for students or is it for administrators? They should really think that over.
Frankly, I do not see the type of honest, open type form of communication that will bring about these changes. And I cannot be very optimistic on this point because I think that the university does not wish to strain its resources unduly to aid any student. The university has maintained a very careful air of studied superiority to the requests of students, and I anticipate very strongly that it will continue to do so. It will give lip service, as it has done for the past 20 years, to student demands. But little more than that is likely to be accomplished.
There has been some response by the administration to student demands, of course. President Walker requested an additional $1 million from the state legislature to assist 500 disadvantaged students. The legislature at this point has not acted upon the university's appropriations request, but 230 disadvantaged students have been admitted on the basis of available financial resources. Recruiting of disadvantaged students continues. Besides 2 regular university recruiters, faculty, students, and other staff members are making recruiting trips to a number of Pennsylvania cities. An Office for Student Discussions was established in order to give students an agency through which they could raise significant campus issues, channel them to the appropriate authorities, and obtain a timely response. Ideally, the office would represent all facets of student opinion. The faculty has also reacted to student demands. Members of the journalism faculty have pledged 1% of their annual salaries to support a scholarship for disadvantaged students. The University Senate, now made up primarily of faculty members, is considering a resolution calling for voting rights for student representatives. If successful, it could be implemented within this academic year. The Senate, under a charge from President Walker, is also trying to devise a disciplinary mechanism to replace the Special Judiciary Board for hearing cases involving the interests of the entire university community. And the students are also making attempts to take the initiative in increasing communications and understanding between themselves and other segments of the university. Colloquy, the American Dream, Conflict 69. A week of conversation, discussions, and speeches on contemporary problems was staged by students during spring term. It is being repeated this fall. A Black Arts Festival with music, art, speeches, drama, and dancing, reflecting black culture and values, was organized by members of the Black Student Union. More recently, students were the primary organizers of and also participated in a successful Vietnam War moratorium. There are increasing opportunities for students to become involved with the university, and there are continuing demands for more meaningful involvement. To what extent the opportunity will balance the demands can probably be judged only with the passage of time. This concludes The Year Behind, The Year Ahead, a report on student activism at the Pennsylvania State University. This is P.J. O'Connell for Penn State Television. Thank you for watching with us. Good night.
The water tower is not essential. The liberation liberation of black people is not more moral than a tabloid.
2 years ago, students had absolutely nothing to say about the running of the university, and nobody asked their opinion.
Decided that this publication being sold and distributed on the campus was not in the best interest of the general welfare of the university.
To think that Penn State is number one in something other than football and censorship.
The administration would do something about it, and when they didn't, that's when we decided to take things into our own hands and raise it ourselves.
The most dangerous confrontation doesn't exist between the students and the administration, but students and other students.
We have asked for any administrator to come out of their locked offices and make a statement to the students gathered in.
Need to respond to non-negotiable demands in the name of academic freedom, which this group has done, is a clear contradiction.
Schools come and they pull out their clubs, we walk out, and we come back again tomorrow.
The potential for hurt is great, and it's student against student. Would you please take them out if they don't annoy you, just to prevent bloody eye?
I am Lieutenant Kimmel of the Pennsylvania State Police.
Convinced that the great majority of students and faculty want the university to continue its work in an orderly manner.
The university should really reevaluate exactly, what its responsibility to students and, in terms of what a university is. Is it for students or is it for administrators? They should really think that over.
This has been a public affairs production of Penn State Television.
A copy of the program you've just seen can be purchased through Penn State Media Sales at mediasales.psu.edu or by calling 800-770-2111.